So at the outset, the Library of Congress wants us to do our little sort of statement of mission here today. And so today is April 17th, 2017. I am interviewing Mr. Paul Boyer, Jr., who is being interviewed here today at Norwich Free Academy in Norwich, Connecticut. The interviewer is yours truly, Joe Courtney, Congressman, 2nd District, Connecticut, working with Central Connecticut State University. And also present is an audience of students from NFA, Norwich Free Academy, as well as some of the teachers, staff, and also invited guests that are here to join us for this interview. So with that, I think we can begin our discussion here. Again, Mr. Boyer, thank you for being with us.
You're very welcome.
I guess we could start at the beginning. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how did you find your way into military service?
I was born August the 25th, 1923, up in Malone, M-A-L-O-N-E, New York, which is northern New York, about 12 miles from the Canadian border. My parents were Helen and Ozias Boyer, and they took very good care of me. The war broke out, as you know, when we had the December 7th. I was still in high school. I was a senior at the high school. From there, I wanted to go enlist right off. My parents, which I thought they were very cautious about me, said, finish your high school, you've got a couple of more months and you would be all right. So I said, okay. So during the interim, I picked up a machinist course because I didn't know if I enlisted or they would refuse me. So I was going to go into industry or something to help the country. So I had a machinist course, and that took care of the summer. On November 7th, it was time for me, I had graduated, it was time for me to go into the service. So And
that was November 7th, 1942.
1942. Now, Malone is very unique. Was a small town, and the only way out is by train. So the nearest office to register for or enlist was down at Albany, New York. So I took the train for a couple hours, got down to the operations, waiting to get interviewed to join up. I wanted to be a pilot, but I wore glasses, so that was out. And I said, well, I'll work around airplanes. I had a mechanical background because my father helped me learning around cars and everything. So I thought, well, be a mechanic. We then went for the enlistment, and he says, oh, the Air Force is closed. You go into, as I call it, a tank driver. He had other terms in infantry. And I said, nah. I go in, I volunteer for the Air Corps. So everything was closed, so I had to go back home. Then the following week, I started all over again. All day, I'm in the office of the enlistment, and the sergeant said, no, they're still closed, still closed. So I said, okay, I'm getting ready to go home. And he said, oh, let me check, be sure. So he went in the other room. It didn't take him very long, so apparently he had the answer before he went in. I was able to go in, but I would go into the Air Corps unassigned. I could not designate what position I wanted to be in. So I thought, well, I get to be a mechanic on it. So on November 7th, I was accepted down at Fort Dix. I was sworn in. And that's 1942.
So before we go further, because I think sometimes it's a point that sometimes, particularly maybe younger people, aren't aware of, but at the time, there was no U.S. Air Force.
Oh, no, that was a U.S. Army Air Corps. Right. I was attached to the Army, in a sense. Now, the Air Force came about after the war, about 3 or 4 months, or years after. They'd made a division.
So again, you enlisted with the U.S. Army.
Army Air Corps, yeah. I was sworn in at Fort Dix, and they issued all my clothing and got all your nice medical shots, that they can punch your arms up. And then I was accepted into the Air Corps, but I went to Atlantic City, New Jersey, for my basic training.
So they actually had a boot camp in
The Atlantic City, wonderful, nice hotel. Nice hotel that they took over, and we had drill in the morning. Well, you woke up, you had calisthenics that was all the time, and then you had your breakfast, and then you went out to the drill field, and we'd march on the boardwalk. You've heard of that? It must have been at least 3-4 miles out to some big field, and that was where we were going to start practicing drill. And we completed that course, but back up during the morning, it must have been still dark, and all the lights as we were singing and counting cadence going down on the boardwalk, the lights were coming on all the way down till we got to the field. We completed that training, and then it just every day we would go back for our lunch, and then we'd had aptitude tests. That's where I came in with my physical ability, being able to be mechanically inclined. That took, I don't know, a couple of weeks, I guess, back and forth. We also went to the drill field with where they pull targets and you did your weapons training. So we'd go back, we'd take a test, and the following day, finally, we had all our aptitudes completed, and my name come up as qualifying for mechanical. I still didn't know where I was going outside of that. That's the field that they were going to give me. The report came up actually for where I was going to go to Lincoln, Nebraska, in the aircraft mechanics school. It was one of the largest at that time, training mechanics for the Air Corps, the different airplanes. That was nearly a 5-month course. We took engines apart, put them on a table, and then you put them all back together and then start them up. So we were well versed in how the mechanics of the aircraft engines and whatever. So that was completed, and I got my so-called aircraft mechanics, not really a certificate, but they then picked a few from the top of the class to go to specialist school, which was a technician's ability to exceed the general mechanic. I was lucky enough to go to aircraft mechanic, get my training at the Douglas Aircraft Plant in Santa Monica, California. And they brought out all the little so-called parts, a section here and a section there, and they start assembling the airplane, which was similar to this here, the A-20 or Boston Havoc. That took about a month for the assembly of a plane, including and then getting ready to fly. The information that I was given was walked around with the plane as they were assembling it, so that I would know what different parts were, where they went, and how they assembled it.
So again, so we went from Atlantic City to Lincoln, Nebraska, 5 months there, and then out to
the aircraft in Santa Monica.
So at Santa Monica, again, like you said, it was like full production.
Well, full production. They were putting out one plane a day. Incredible. It was unbelievable, because all of a sudden you see, say, 30, 40, 50 pieces of different sections of the plane that are going like that, and you got the people. There were mechanics, or I call them mechanics, putting things assembling it, and all of a sudden there's the fuselage in front of you, and then they come in with the wings, and it was very, very interesting how they accomplished it. And so they put the unit together. I was trained after that. It was assembled. I was trained on how to pre-flight an aircraft and to check all the different inspections spots on the airplane. Every so many hours you would have to check. And so it was good training to go through that. And when I got through that one month, maybe five weeks or so, I flew out with a airplane pilot from the plant. He was a test pilot, and he had already tested this airplane, so it was airworthy. We went to Arizona and refueled it there. I'm on my way to my bomb group over at Lincoln, Nebraska. And so I think, let's see, Lincoln, Nebraska. Will Rogers Field, sorry about that. Will Rogers Field, Oklahoma City. And there I went to the 417th Bomb Group. It was newly formed, and I was a crew chief on this one plane that I flew out with. They kept coming in every day, another plane or two planes, depending on the numbers that were coming in. Different squadrons. We had 4 squadrons, and we were being filled up. Now, what that did at Okinawa, or not Okinawa, on the Oklahoma.
Right.
At Oklahoma was that they would now receive pilots that would learn how to fly, take off and landings, and the gunners were for the planes also. So that went on until we had a full complement of our bomb group for 4 flights. Then we went to DeRidder, Louisiana for actually training for combat conditions. They were out in fields and had all our mess gear that we eaten out in the field. And the pilots would do their bombing and strafing runs on their special areas. And that went on for a couple of 3 weeks maybe. Not too long. And then they had night flying, which was interesting because where we were at DeRidder, Louisiana, they had no landing lights for night flying. So we went down to Baton Rouge to have them trained for takeoff and landings with the runways all lit up. That went not too many days, 3, 4, maybe nights actually. We fly back and forth, which was a couple of hours maybe.
So while you were doing all of these different stops and getting everybody trained up, I mean, you're about 20 years old at this point, right? 19.
I haven't turned 20 yet.
Okay, and
I'm 19.
I mean, obviously, it sounds like it was probably your first experience being away from your family. And what was that like? Because obviously, we didn't have internet or.
No, it was kind of difficult in a sense, but I was being so-called slapped with all these different projects that I was getting involved with, like and I didn't have much time to think about it, but it was difficult, and still I had a job to do, and my prime concern when I enlisted it was to drive the Japs out of where they were, and
so in terms of the folks you were working with, I mean, it was nobody from your hometown.
Oh no!
So these were just all people from different parts.
All over the country, a bunch of good guys. They all went through schools like I did to get to that point, and
all pretty much the same age as far as.
We had a couple of old men. They might have been 30.
Yeah.
Going through the aircraft mechanics school, we called him the old man, and I don't think he was 30 because we were all teenagers.
So was Mail able to catch up to you from your family at all? Or?
In the States, it was quite regular. Yeah. They would write quite often, and overseas was a hazard though. Yeah, you got mail that was 2 or 3 months old was on time. Of course, we moved all the time. The minute we would push the Japs out of our one area, we would take over the area, and then the mail would catch up to the location.
And just as far as the living conditions, while you were at these different bases, I mean, as far as
in the States, we had 3 meals a day, and that was fine. We I didn't have to pull KP. They put an extra thing on the arm there. What do they call it now? And I had too many bars on there to pull KP, but we had good quarters. The shelters at the aircraft mechanics school were tar papered, one level of long. It must have been at least 60, 70 feet long, and it was one, and that's where we slept. Now during the winter, we had very cold weather, and they had I call it pot-belly stoves. I don't know whatever else you would call it, and that was heated by coal. I was lucky in this long barracks. I'm right in the center, and that's where the pot-belly stove was. So I was always warm. On the guys on both ends, it's cold, it's cold. And all you'd get was the noise. It was cold. But the food was good, and the quarters were adequate. Although we had, you want to call it bathrooms, we call it latrine. We had to go outside to one long building, and showers and everything were there. And it got kind of chilly now and then.
You said you had some
chevrons.
Bars. So what was your rank?
Tech sergeant when I finished.
So you were moving up.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah. When I got through aircraft mechanics school, I was a corporal. Then I went to the Douglas aircraft plant and watched that construction, and went to the bomb group. And then I made sergeant eventually, and then all this was an experience to go through. And you could see the ones that had more rank than what you had, they were older, and they had been around a little bit longer. And
you said the plant at the Douglas plant out west, so they were actually building that at the same time the production was going on?
Oh, yes. When I was there, my job was to stick with this one airplane that they're just starting, and I would stay right there, and the manager or floor operator, he was coming and checking each plane as a schedule of parts were coming in. I never saw such an assembly of parts. There's no more to get one here and put it on like that, and there's another one waiting to be installed. It was unbelievable how they could do it.
Because a big part of the story of World War II, particularly in the U.S., was how our industrial base just was constituted overnight.
The reason we won.
You were right there watching.
The reason we won the war is because the home front produced tanks, planes, you name it, in such quantities that they couldn't destroy them all during the war. It was the home front. Without that, we wouldn't have made it.
Now, this plane that you brought with you, that's the plane that you pretty much spent your time working on?
It's the only airplane type that I actually was a crew chief on.
Yeah. Can you talk about it a little bit? What does it do?
Yes, we had 60, I think it's 62 feet from wingtip to wingtip, and almost 30 from the nose to the tail in measurements. It would take a ton of bombs, that's 400 or 500s. They had different assemblies for different types of munitions, and they would go into bomb bay and make a different rack to hold whatever it was, the munitions. This A-20G was what I was crewing, and they started out with the A's, and this one had 4 50 caliber machine guns in the nose, and on the side or the top halfway down was the Thompson turret, which had twin 50 caliber machine guns, and that had 360 degree that it could be fired. The pilot, there was just one pilot, and only room for one, and the same way in the gunner in the back, a pilot and a gunner for that type of aircraft. The unit would go, say, in a little glide towards a target. They could get almost 340 miles an hour. Now, I mean, with all these planes now that they're in the 1,000, that may not seem like very much, but it was one of the fastest light bombers around. and the others were all in the 270, 280, like that. So that type of airplane was used on low-level flying. It was capable with the mechanism on the engines to go up to 15,000. They could put it in an afterburner and everything. But it stayed below 50, just hedge over the trees. If you figure 200 or 300 miles an hour, and take your car and you 50 miles an hour, and you watch it go by you 50 miles an hour. Well, add another 250 to that, and it's gone. So over a target, they're below the radar, and then when they hit the target area, they started their ammunition going, the 50 caliber machine guns, and opened the bomb bay doors and dropped the bombs on the target. And the strafing it like that, they're, I would say, less than a minute over the target. I mean, I'll say, gee, that wasn't very much. But at that speed, and our targets were not that big, an area that had to be covered. And we put about 16 planes, maybe 18 planes going down like this and bombing, strafing the target. It was very impressive when the Japs thought.
So at some point, you did head out to the Pacific, right, from Louisiana?
That was an effort, yeah. Backing it up. Yeah. All right. When you got through all the training down in DeRidder, Louisiana, we went over to the West Coast in San Francisco and Camp Stoneman. Well, Camp Stoneman was a place for embarking overseas. They would give us all our overseas shots that we were going to get. They would take and check, be sure that your nails are cut. Everything went real good. But then to get to the actual ship, we were going from Camp Stoneman, we'd get on the river steamer. I think you read where I had the first sergeant was cleaning his pistol and he shot his foot. So we wondered how, because we were on our way out to the boat to go overseas. And another one went overboard. They stopped the river steamer and they pulled it up, and that was it. Those were trying times because you didn't know what to expect. Now, we went through Christmas and we're still over in the States. Then all of a sudden they stopped us from taking the telephone or telegraph. We couldn't use it anymore. And a couple of 3 days we're on the boat, the General Heinzman, and we would, I think we must have been in the early morning, you could feel you were underway on the ship, and you could feel the swells in the boat going up and down. So you knew you had left shore. In the morning, daylight, we saw we couldn't see land. So to get to where we were going, we didn't know where. But we did pack some clothing for sheepskin and the like, so we thought we were going up to the northern tier, which would be, but it didn't work that way.
So the ship had your whole flight crew?
We had our whole bomb group, okay. And we had a Red Cross complement of I don't know, half a dozen or less, and then we had our Marine Guards. They had quite a few of that. Now our group, we had, I would say, roughly 2,500 to 3,000 personnel, and on one ship. They had on the center, which one of my books around here, it shows the 55-gallon drums. They were on the center of the ship, on the deck. So everything we could carry to go with us, it was there. We zigzagged. We did not go in a group or have any escorts. We went over by ourselves, and we zigzagged all the way through. We went through the equator when we got our going to. Just a minute, having one of those moments. The King Neptunes. We crossed the equator, and we got initiated. He's looking at me down there. They zigzagged all the way over. Maybe 20 minutes in one direction and maybe 30. They staggered the time element, but without any other escorts. It was to protect us from any possible Japanese track us down where you're going, and they could meet us, but they didn't know which direction we were going to go. So that completed 23 days. We thought we were in the Navy. It was a very good experience. In fact, we hit the Coral Sea just before we got to New Guinea, and you could smell.
That's where you were headed.
We were headed for land where we didn't know at that time, but we got down in that area. You could smell about I'd say a day or so before you could smell land or vegetation like, and we were going into the Coral Sea. We had another storm, and everybody got all sick again from the traveling. We finally got to Oral Bay in Dobrodoro, I think was the only thing. They anchored the craft, and we offloaded from the boat on cargo nets. I don't know if you've ever seen them. It's a rope nets. It goes that way and this way, and you can put your feet into the little square, and you go down. You offloaded that way, and here we have our duffel bag and a rifle, and some of them didn't make it. It got into the water, but anyway, we offloaded into landing craft.
So now this is an island that...
This is on New Guinea.
And that's controlled by the Netherlands?
No, the Dutch, that's on one end of it. Great Britain had that end of it. Yeah, and Australia was the primary area where our planes were down in Australia are being fabricated. The wings on them and however they got there, I don't know. I presume that they were on freighters. And so we offloaded and were picked up and put into the staging area. Now the staging area was very, very comfortable in the sense you had an army cot, and but then you had to have the mosquito netting. And it wasn't so much because of the mosquitoes, also they had kangaroo rats that were running around at night, and they wouldn't go on through the netting. So that's another experience. The planes came up, I would say, maybe 3 weeks after we arrived there. And Dobrodoro, they flew in. That was an impressive formation. There must have been at least 70 or 80 planes. I should be looking at you, shouldn't I? 70 or 80 planes all in the air at one time and circling and landing one at a time on our airstrip. And the nice rhythm roar of the engines, it was very, very nice. And then now we were able to work because we received our planes, and we had to go over them all because we didn't know how they put them together down in Australia. You couldn't trust it. At least I couldn't. That took us a day or so for pulling plates, inspection, and checking everything out. We ran one mission from Dobrodoro, and then we went up to Sador, New Guinea, and there we were there for about almost 5 months, and that we were really doing bomb runs and strafing and hitting Japanese on the land and the sea. We did a lot of getting crafts and sinking them with our bomb loads.
So as the head of the flight crew, while that tempo was going on, when the planes would come back, I mean, was there like a turnaround time that you were trying to achieve?
I took it upon myself that if the minute I come back from a mission, the first thing I did was walk around it and check every inch of the skin on it, and that's a framework. If I didn't see any holes or any fragmentation shots of it, then I started the engines, checking them out, and I'd go through it thoroughly after every mission, and if my plane had any damage whatsoever, I would repair it, and I would continued to work on it until it was done. That could be maybe 6-8 hours or so a day, depending on the missions and what they had to go through to get back. The missions generally 4 to maybe 5.5 hours, and that was about the maximum range that we could go. We could get about let's see, about 370 gallons of fuel in the wings, and if we moved up, which we did once, we could put a belly tank, we called it, there. That was another 300 and some odd, and that we just disposed of rather than a thing when it got through. But it was to get to the next base, because we could only go so many hours, and then you run out of fuel, you don't go very far.
So, I mean, did you lose some planes? Or?
Oh yes, yeah. We lost planes. I had fortunate the damage to my plane. The pilot was able to get the plane back, but a lot of them never made it back, and that's the hazards, I guess you call it that. But the minute we get the information from the operations, they're on their way back. It means that they've completed the bomb run and to dispose of the enemy, whether it was in the water or on their shore in their bases. So then we're looking in formation, because as you take off to go on the bomb run or mission, they generally stay in formation. You perhaps have seen them in the skies, or where they one here, and one here, and then they keep moving in that area. Coming back, I knew where my plane was all the time. There's a right wing, generally is about where he went, on the right wing, and here we had the front commander going. If my plane was lagging behind, it wouldn't show up with that leading plane, and so that happened only a couple of times, and he was delayed in getting there because he had a problem with one of the engines that shot up.
So now, at one point, or at some point, you moved on to the Philippines. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. We after Sador, we had Hollandia, which was in the New Guinea. We completed our bombing missions on them, and the army bases took over the thing. We moved up to a small island in I guess it's the Dutch East Indies, and we were there for almost 2-3 months, and then we were going up into the Philippines. Now the Philippines are very unique. We had, each time we would make a move, we had our ground crew and all our equipment, our jeeps and tools and whatever, went out on a freighter, like a combination of student for personnel in the freighter. And when we left the small island to go up to the Philippines, the kamikazes, you've heard of them, they were getting very active. They hit the formation of our ships, which the ground crew were in, and they just missed the bow of the thing, hitting another one. So we did find it. They anchored in our new base in San Jose in the Philippines, and we flew up. I think it was 3 days later, and they had it.
So if you follow the progression of your different
progress.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it sort of tracked.
Yeah.
The progression of basically taking
back what the Japs had overrun and captured.
Right, because the Philippines, obviously, that was a huge loss in 1942.
Oh yeah, we lost.
So now we're about 1944 when this was all going on, I think.
Yes, 44, and the Philippines. The closer you push the Japanese to their homeland, the shorter they had to go to get supplies and the equipment and everything. And every time we'd take a new base, they were at us every day until we finally located where the planes were coming from. and they'd bomb and strafe and whatever. And I lost, when we hit the Philippines, I got there on the 28th of December, I think it was. 1944. And then we had nearly every day and night bombing and strafing. They really came after us. They hit an ammunition ship out in the harbor, and that took, you could feel or hear the concussion, feel it, or whatever. I guess you'd feel it from the explosion of that. And then our boat that we had all our equipment on was docked, and they were offloading all the equipment. That was sunk by shelling. The Japs hit the thing with the ship. They're Navy,
So, and you mentioned kamikaze pilots again. Those are the suicide pilots.
Yeah,
Just fly right in.
they would fly in, and their one goal was to get wherever it is in front of them, destroy it. And one of them didn't make it, and he grounded. They found out that he had his ankles shackled to the rudder pedals, so he couldn't get out. And so the infantry, they managed to get there without any problem. Yeah. Now, the airstrips that we had were made out of metal mats, that they call it, and they were a long section, maybe almost as from here over to there. One section would be about that wide, and they're interlocking, and they will keep building on new sections until they run all 100 and, I don't know how many feet, a couple of miles almost for the runway. And it was wide enough that you could put a couple of planes and take off at the same time.
So while all that, incoming was hitting the Philippines, I mean, how did you have to protect yourself?
Well, we
were like in combat.
Yeah. Oh, yes. The minute we hit the Philippines, we were in combat. There was no question about it. And the advanced crew of workmen, whatever you call them, they had set up about 3 miles, or a little over 3 miles from our airport, our runways. And we had what they call pyramid tents. It was a tent like that, and that give you a description. And that would take care of half a dozen of us on Army cots. All right, when we got there, they said dig a foxhole, and they didn't mean a round hole like that. We took the whole length of the one side. We dug it enough for you get 2 people in. Then we covered the center on, left both ends open, so any raid would come, you'd get in each one in to get out of the thing. You had an experience that's something to go through. But after I would say almost 2 weeks, that was cut down pretty much.
So the frequency started.
The frequency, yeah. But that was we did our aircraft taking missions every day, sometimes two missions a day.
The same plane.
That type of a plane, yes, yeah. And we did a lot of ground support. And the infantry in San Fernando Valley, I think it was. And
so the surrender was in August 1945. So then, and you arrived there right after Christmas, 44?
Yes, up there. Now, when the Okinawa was secured, then the atom bomb had dropped like that. But they didn't have enough area to park all our bomb group's planes. Only half of them were up there. I was very lucky. I had 4 planes that our group had at Clark Field, which is in the Philippines, and one other sergeant from each flight. They had 4 planes to take care of. We had to have them ready in the event we needed it. Well, the war ended, so they didn't need it. But nice experience. We started from the airport. They wanted to know if we could move our planes from this side to the other side of the runway because the B-29s were coming in. So
the B-29s were the much bigger bombers.
You put 2 or 3 just under the wing almost. Yeah, it was huge. And so we the four sergeants. We took the airplanes that we had, four in our charge, and drove them. No, we stepped on the accelerator. We pushed them on the other side of the field. We call the operations just to get clearance to, but that was good. And the war got over. I was at Clark Field, and when they said it was over,
that's when the announcement of the
surrender. The EM club had that's an enlisted men's club, a nice bar. We enjoyed ourselves, but it was.
Talk about that. What was that like? The celebration?
To me, it was what a relief. Because every time that bomber went off that I was crewing, I would wait till it hit the ground coming back, because it was always on my mind, did you miss anything? Did you miss anything? That's all you'd have to do is they're over the target and all of a sudden the left engine cuts out or something like that. Why? Because I didn't do something. That bothered me. And I didn't think it did until when it was over. I said, what a relief.
No, that's true. I mean, the pilot are talented.
Oh, yeah, they had their job to do. They had their job to do, and mine was to keep that so there's nothing wrong with it as humanly possible. Because, yeah.
So then they had the surrender ceremony where the emperor.
Thing. Which you can go on YouTube on the signing with the battleship. And you can get the whole thing on YouTube with showing the type of airplanes, the Betty bomber and the Zero and everything. Their planes, the Japanese, to attend the ceremony, they were all painted white with big green crosses like on it. And go on. I suggest anybody can go on YouTube and say the surrender. Signing of the surrender of Japan with MacArthur in the battleship. Yeah.
So, so that's August.
In the middle of August.
Middle of August. And, obviously there was a big job to do in terms of just getting people home and obviously dealing with the logistics. By the time the war was over, we moved up to Okinawa. I got as far as Okinawa. And they started sending the guys home by the point system. So many points for 1 month or whatever. I don't know. All I know is I had 69 points and it wasn't enough. To get the first group home. The flight chief, he apparently had more time than me. And he went and I took over the flight after that. So I now have the 4 planes instead of 1 to kind of supervise in a sense. But they offered me another stripe, which would have made me master sergeant, to stay 3 months in Japan, because we were going up at Japan from Okinawa. And I just looked at him, and I don't know if he got the message just from the looks, but I told him he could have it. I wanted home. And when I enlisted, it wasn't like a lot of them. A lot of them went in for 3 years, 6 years, or whatever thing. They had assigned, they would go for 5 years. I don't know what the Navy, what their thing. But I went in unassigned as far as the number of years. And it stayed duration of the war. The war is ended, goodbye. And that was my attitude on that. I got to go to Japan, and that was nice. The Japanese people were, you would think, very aggressive towards you, but I went from Kobe Air Base to Okinawa and on the train, electric train, which was an amazing thing. There's experience on that. In Kobe, I went with one of the other sergeants, and this guy brought us up in front of his house and invited us in. And with the invitation to come in, we didn't know, well, should we go in or not, We elected to do it anyway, and we took our shoes off, that was their standard procedure, and we went in, and we were motioned by this Japanese to sit down next to a coffee table on a pillow,
And he gave us manuals, like I guess I've got another one out there to look at. And it was all their military, other aviators, their boats and ships and whatever. So we fingered through. We didn't talk very much because he didn't know how much he understood, if he understood anything at all. So when we were all through with that, he said, wait. And his wife made some little shoestring potatoes. I don't think it was a cupful. But you have to understand that the Japanese were really looking for food. They were very desperate. And so the offering was exceptionally nice, And we had that. We're all ready to go to leave. I have a nice new flag, which was still in some kind of cellophane paper because they didn't have plastic at that time, of a Japanese flag. I was given that and a little geisha girl, about like that, which I thought was a nice gesture and a thing. And, because it was, by that time it was November. And,
So my notes say you arrived home December 21st, 1945.
Thank God.
So you went straight to New York?
Yeah, we landed in Washington, and the first thing I did was get to a payphone, and I don't know where I got the money to put in it, but anyway, I called my wife to be. She was in Greenwich, and my mother at Northern New York at Malone. And over here, it must have been 2 o'clock in the morning or so, because I was, 3 hours, and thing. And we did get a nice warm reception. The band was there, which the poor Vietnamese, they didn't get it. It was hard to express how you felt. And so when I spoke with my wife-to-be, made arrangements for when I would call her when we got to Fort Dix, where I was going to be, and then she met me at the Grand Central Station.
So from the time of your enlistment, which was November 7th, 1942, to coming home December 21st, 1945, that's the first time
when we were in Louisiana getting ready to go overseas, everybody got a furlough. I had a 10-day furlough. The only bad thing of it was I didn't fly. There was no flights going from Louisiana to Northern New York, so I had to be on a coach, mind you, of a train, and people were getting up and they were knocking the backs down, letting me sleep for 3 days up to Northern New York. Then I had 4 days with my family and 3 days back. So in 3 years, I had 4 years. I was kind of lonesome.
Yeah.
Kind of lonesome.
So, well, I know we want to open up to some questions here, but before we do, so how did you end up in Norwich, Connecticut?
Well,
talk a little bit about life after.
We'll back it up. I married a girl from Greenwich, Connecticut, and I had known her before the war, and then got married after the war, and we lived up in Northern New York in Malone for about 10 years. And I got transferred from the employment I was in with General Adjustment Bureau, and I got transferred from there to Plattsburgh, and from Plattsburgh, the manager had a heart attack and stayed on, and I was the excess baggage, so I got transferred down to Norwich. And I've been down here, gosh, now it's up 45, 50 years.
So, well, we're glad you're here. And, again, just for the purposes of the taping, I mean, you've got a pretty impressive array of medals there that you're wearing.
Yes,
and,
but
I've got the list, but I don't know if you want to.
No, you can do a good job with it.
So
I've talked enough.
Yeah. So again, because of his service, Mr. Boyer was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 4 bronze stars, which again shows the different theaters that he was in. The American Campaign Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the Philippine Liberation Medal and ribbon, the Army Occupation Medal with Japan clasp, that's for the time that you were there after the war, the American Defense Medal, the expert badge with carbine. It's a little.
That I forgot to tell you, I was in the active reserve during the balloon call-up for 9 years.
So, all right, so your service didn't end. That's it. And then lastly, the World War II discharge pin, which is also called the ruptured duck.
Ruptured duck.
Because it kind of looks like.
Yeah, we wore that after the war, but I had no civvies to. I had to get a whole new uniform after a number of years, and so that ruptured duck right here, that gave you a ride on the train. You gave you almost anything. That was a pass to go. Yeah.
So, well, again, we'll open it up to the floor for questions. But again, at the end, just at the first of all, you did a great job. It was really nicely done. And,